Being trapped in space is a nightmare scenario few could imagine. When it happens, the first reaction is shock and disbelief. The realization of isolation and the vast emptiness around can be mentally overwhelming. Alone in a spacecraft or floating outside without immediate rescue, the initial challenge is to maintain composure. Space is unforgiving, and even a single misstep can lead to rapid disaster. At this stage, the body may react with heightened adrenaline, making rational thinking harder. It's crucial to manage breathing, as hyperventilating wastes precious oxygen. The feeling of claustrophobia might creep in despite the vastness of space, especially if confined within a small spacecraft. The psychological toll of knowing you are far from Earth, with no immediate rescue on the way, can push even the most experienced astronauts to their limits. Survival starts with the mind. Calmness and focus become essential tools to stave off panic. What could go wrong at this stage? If panic takes over, a person may use up oxygen more quickly or make poor decisions that put their life in immediate danger. Trying to communicate with Earth could lead to mistakes if equipment is mishandled in a rush. In space, even the smallest errors in judgment can have fatal consequences. Once the initial shock subsides, the focus turns to survival basics, with oxygen being the most critical. Spacesuits or spacecraft are designed to recycle air, but supplies are limited. Without a functioning life support system, oxygen depletion is a matter of hours. In this stage, every breath counts, and conserving oxygen becomes the priority. Efficient breathing techniques and staying calm to minimize exertion can extend survival time. If inside a spacecraft, monitoring the air filtration system and CO2 scrubbers becomes paramount. Even the smallest malfunction in these systems can lead to the buildup of carbon dioxide, which is deadly in confined spaces. It's important to manage temperature, as the body's need for oxygen increases with stress or heat. Ensuring that equipment, like oxygen tanks or filters, is working properly is essential. What could go wrong? A malfunctioning oxygen system, broken seals in the suit, or a leak in the spacecraft could lead to rapid air loss. In case of an external puncture, the vacuum of space would quickly suck out all the air, leaving little time for corrective action. Technical failures like these turn a manageable situation into a life or death race against time. Even if oxygen is secured, surviving for more than a few days in space depends heavily on access to food and water. Water, in particular, is a vital resource for sustaining life. Spacecraft are equipped with limited water recycling systems, which allow for careful rationing. However, when you are trapped, conserving water becomes critical. Dehydration can set in quickly, weakening the body and clouding the mind. Food in space is usually packaged to last for long journeys, but without rationing, supplies will quickly run out. Eating too much too soon or not maintaining a proper intake can lead to malnutrition. The body, weakened by hunger or dehydration, won't be able to function properly, which is dangerous when quick thinking and physical strength are needed. What could go wrong? If the water recycling system breaks down, dehydration will set in rapidly. Contaminated water could cause illness, weakening the body even further. Malfunctioning equipment that supplies food, like heaters or storage units, could make it difficult to sustain energy levels. Lack of nourishment weakens the mind and body, making survival harder with each passing hour. Space is a place of extremes. One moment, a spacecraft could be bathed in scorching sunlight, and the next, plunged into freezing darkness. Managing temperature is crucial for survival. Spacesuits and spacecraft are designed with temperature control systems, but when these systems malfunction, surviving the harsh environment becomes a new challenge. In the cold void of space, the body loses heat rapidly, which can lead to hypothermia. On the other hand, direct exposure to sunlight can cause extreme overheating. Inside a malfunctioning spacecraft, temperature swings can make it difficult to maintain a livable environment. If the temperature regulation system fails, the body will struggle to adapt. Too much heat can lead to heat stroke, while too little can cause the body to shut down. What could go wrong? If the temperature control systems break down, frostbite or heat exhaustion could set in quickly. Without proper insulation from these extreme conditions, the body may start to shut down before oxygen or food supplies run out. Attempting to fix these systems while enduring such temperatures makes survival even more difficult. Once the essentials of survival are secured, oxygen, food, water, and temperature control, focus shifts to communication. Being trapped in space, survival hinges on making contact with Earth or a nearby rescue team. Spacecraft have communication devices, but damage or technical failure could render them useless. Signal delays, interference, or broken equipment complicate the already fragile situation. Without communication, a person is truly alone in the universe, and finding rescue becomes almost impossible. However, even if contact is made, rescue may be days or weeks away, and surviving until help arrives presents its own challenge. Monitoring life support systems, rationing supplies, and conserving energy must continue until rescue is certain. What could go wrong? Communication systems could fail entirely, making rescue impossible. Long delays in receiving messages could lead to miscommunication, and faulty equipment may send out incorrect data about the trapped person's location. Additionally, rescue attempts might fail due to the vast distances in space or unforeseen technical issues. If help does not arrive in time, all efforts to survive could ultimately fall short. In space, every detail matters, and survival is a race against time, technology, and the unforgiving environment of the cosmos. Surviving in space is not just a physical challenge but a monumental psychological test. Isolation in the void of space, far from Earth, can lead to feelings of helplessness, anxiety, and depression. The absence of human contact, the stillness of space, and the uncertainty of rescue weigh heavily on the mind. Maintaining mental clarity becomes a critical aspect of survival. The brain, under such stress, can begin to hallucinate or distort reality, leading to dangerous decisions. Maintaining routine tasks, however small, becomes essential for psychological health. It helps to create a sense of normalcy, reducing the overwhelming weight of isolation. Astronauts are trained to handle long periods in space, but when trapped with no clear way home, even the most seasoned individuals may struggle to stay focused. Space is an environment that amplifies solitude, and without mental resilience, the will to survive can falter quickly. What could go wrong? In a situation like this, panic attacks, claustrophobia, or a complete mental breakdown could occur. Paranoia might set in, leading to irrational decisions that could waste resources or even sabotage potential rescue efforts. Mental fatigue can also lead to simple mistakes, like miscalculating oxygen levels or forgetting essential survival tasks. Floating through space isn't just about surviving in an enclosed environment. The threat of space debris is constant and deadly. Thousands of pieces of debris, from tiny bolts to entire disused satellites, are orbiting Earth at incredible speeds. Even the smallest object can puncture a spacecraft or a spacesuit, leading to a catastrophic decompression. The International Space Station, for example, has shielding to protect it from small debris, but a trapped individual in space won't have such luxury. The danger comes not just from large objects but from micrometeoroids, tiny particles moving at velocities that can tear through metal. Any collision with space debris could result in a breach of the spacecraft or suit, leading to rapid oxygen loss or equipment failure. What could go wrong? A single piece of debris could rupture the spacecraft's hull or your spacesuit, resulting in a vacuum exposure scenario. A high-speed collision might damage vital communication systems or life support machinery, making survival even more difficult. Without the ability to repair a breach, time would run out quickly due to oxygen loss or exposure to the vacuum of space. Without a working navigation system, space becomes an endless, disorienting abyss. Spacecraft are equipped with sophisticated instruments to help astronauts navigate the vastness of space, but when trapped, those systems may fail. Understanding your position relative to Earth or a space station becomes a priority, as rescue efforts depend on precise location data. Without proper navigation, the chance of rescue diminishes. Even outside a spacecraft, while floating in space, orientation becomes a challenge. Space has no gravity, no up or down, and determining direction can be almost impossible without reference points. If outside the spacecraft, tethered to nothing, disorientation can quickly lead to becoming lost in the vast expanse. Attempts to correct your course with propulsion devices could be futile if you don't know where you're headed. What could go wrong? If navigation systems are compromised, you could drift further away from any possible rescue path. Becoming disoriented or losing control of your position could lead to floating aimlessly into space, beyond reach of any search efforts. Even if rescue ships are searching for you, incorrect positioning could result in their missing your location entirely. Outside Earth's atmosphere, one of the greatest threats is radiation. Earth's magnetic field and atmosphere provide a protective shield against harmful cosmic radiation and solar flares. However, in the vacuum of space, you are exposed to high levels of ionizing radiation. Over time, this radiation can damage cells, leading to acute radiation sickness or long-term effects like cancer. Spacecraft and spacesuits are designed with shielding to protect against this radiation, but the longer you are stranded, the more susceptible you become. Solar storms, which send out intense bursts of radiation, pose an even greater risk. If trapped in space during one of these events, exposure levels could become life-threatening within hours. Radiation sickness causes nausea, vomiting, dizziness, and eventually organ failure if exposure is extreme. What could go wrong? Without adequate protection, prolonged radiation exposure could damage your body's cells beyond repair, leading to radiation poisoning. Solar flares, unpredictable by nature, could bombard you with intense radiation, increasing the likelihood of fatal damage. Even with shielding, malfunctioning systems might reduce the effectiveness of the protection, making survival unlikely over time. The final and perhaps most devastating aspect of surviving in space is the reliance on technology. Everything in space depends on the proper functioning of machinery and equipment. Spacesuits, air filtration systems, oxygen tanks, communication devices, and spacecraft thrusters, all are essential for keeping a person alive. If any of these systems fail, survival becomes exponentially more difficult. Equipment malfunctions can occur due to age, damage, or extreme conditions in space. A damaged spacesuit might leak oxygen, a failing power supply could shut down life support, or a malfunctioning propulsion system could leave you stranded without any means of course correction. Spacecraft are equipped with redundancies, but in an emergency, even backup systems might fail. In such a scenario, survival comes down to ingenuity, luck, and how quickly you can fix the issue, or improvise a solution. What could go wrong? System-wide failures could occur, leaving you with no oxygen, communication, or power. If the spacecraft loses pressure, there might be no way to repair it, resulting in rapid decompression. Electrical malfunctions could lead to fire or complete shutdown, cutting off life support. Even a minor technical glitch, like a stuck valve or a cracked seal, can be fatal if it affects a critical system. Without working equipment, survival is nearly impossible in the harsh environment of space. Surviving in space is a delicate balance of mental fortitude, technical knowledge, and luck. Each moment is fraught with danger, from isolation to equipment failure, and only through a combination of resilience and resourcefulness can someone hope to make it back home alive. Time in space can be deceiving. With no day or night cycles and nothing to mark the passage of time, hours can feel like days, and days can feel like an eternity. When trapped in space, one of the most difficult mental challenges is managing time. The mind, under stress and isolation, can lose track of how long you've been stranded. Boredom, anxiety, and the crushing fear of an uncertain rescue can make it hard to stay focused on the tasks necessary for survival. Establishing a routine becomes critical to stave off mental exhaustion. Even simple tasks like monitoring oxygen levels, checking equipment, or preparing food can help maintain a sense of purpose. If time is not carefully managed, it can lead to spiraling thoughts of doom and despair. The mind, trapped in a small space or floating aimlessly, may begin to fixate on worst-case scenarios, making it harder to stay focused on survival. What could go wrong? Losing track of time could result in poor rationing of essential supplies like food, water, or oxygen. Mental exhaustion from the relentless passage of time might cause someone to make a critical mistake, such as forgetting to check important life support systems or ignoring a minor malfunction that escalates into a serious problem. The inability to mentally cope with the endlessness of time in space can be as deadly as physical threats. In space, solar flares pose a significant threat to survival. Solar flares are sudden bursts of radiation and charged particles from the sun that can disrupt electronics, damage life support systems, and pose a direct health risk. While spacecraft are often designed to withstand moderate radiation exposure, a powerful solar flare could disable critical systems or expose the individual to lethal levels of radiation. Unlike other space threats, solar flares are unpredictable and give little warning. The first signs may come in the form of sudden electronic malfunctions, followed by an overwhelming amount of radiation. Without proper shielding, an individual trapped in space is vulnerable. Communication systems could be wiped out, life support systems fried, and the spacesuit or spacecraft's ability to regulate temperature and pressure might fail entirely. What could go wrong? A solar flare could irreparably damage all electronics, leaving you without life support, navigation, or communication systems. Radiation exposure during a solar storm can cause nausea, burns, or worse, death from radiation poisoning. Even if you survive the initial event, the damage to essential systems could make long-term survival impossible, especially if help is far away. While floating in the weightlessness of space might seem freeing, the long-term effects of microgravity on the human body are severe. Over time, the lack of gravity weakens muscles, reduces bone density, and affects cardiovascular function. Being trapped in space for an extended period means that the body will slowly deteriorate due to the absence of gravity. Without exercise or movement, muscle atrophy sets in, making it difficult to perform necessary tasks or handle emergencies. Astronauts aboard the International Space Station combat these effects by exercising for hours each day, but in a survival scenario, resources and space may not allow for regular physical activity. The body, unused to the effects of microgravity, may develop balance issues, making it harder to perform simple movements or use equipment. Dizziness, disorientation, and muscle weakness can quickly escalate, turning basic tasks into monumental challenges. What could go wrong? Extended periods without gravity can lead to muscle and bone deterioration, causing physical weakness at a time when strength is needed the most. Loss of coordination or disorientation can make operating essential spacecraft controls nearly impossible. In a crisis, when survival requires quick thinking and fast action, the physical toll of microgravity can leave you too weak to respond, leading to disaster. Fire in space is one of the most dangerous situations imaginable. With oxygen supplies tightly controlled, a fire can quickly consume all available air and produce toxic smoke that fills the confined space of a spacecraft. The weightlessness of space also makes controlling fires more difficult. Flames behave differently in microgravity, spreading in unpredictable ways and creating dangerous hotspots. A small spark caused by faulty wiring or equipment failure could ignite a fire. In a spacecraft, everything is packed tightly, and flammable materials might be closer than expected. A fire not only threatens oxygen supplies but can also destroy vital systems, leaving the trapped individual with no life support, no power, or even a breach in the spacecraft's hull. What could go wrong? If a fire breaks out, the rapid consumption of oxygen could lead to suffocation within minutes. Toxic fumes would spread quickly, making it impossible to breathe or see. Even if the fire is contained, the damage to critical systems could lead to a loss of life support, communication, or navigation. A fire could also cause a catastrophic hull breach, exposing the entire spacecraft to the vacuum of space. In extreme cases, when survival seems impossible, the individual may be forced to make an agonizing decision. Should they attempt to prolong their suffering in the hope of rescue, or should they end their life to avoid the inevitable? Space survival is fraught with uncertainty, and the psychological strain of endless isolation, fear, and dwindling resources can push even the strongest minds to their breaking point. When oxygen, food, or water supplies are exhausted, and rescue appears to be a distant hope, the trapped person may face the grim reality of suffocating or starving to death. The mental and physical agony of slowly running out of life-sustaining essentials can be unbearable. At this point, the individual may contemplate using whatever resources they have left to end their suffering, whether by using their oxygen supply or taking other irreversible actions. What could go wrong? Deciding to end life prematurely could be a tragic mistake if rescue was just hours or days away. On the other hand, choosing to prolong suffering may lead to intense physical pain, hallucinations, and delirium as oxygen levels drop or dehydration sets in. The decision to continue fighting or surrender is an ethical and emotional dilemma that adds another layer of complexity to an already dire situation. It's a choice no one wants to face, but in the cold emptiness of space, it may become a grim reality.